I'm Gary Williams, and it's my pleasure to host this, the final one of a series of three webinars aimed at our partners or potential partners. And in this session, we're going to focus on different use cases of our technology, the business problems they solve, the process flows behind the solutions, and finally, the story from the Spitch sales executives responsible. We will look at retail, government, healthcare, and other industries. And during the session, we will pause several times in order to get an opinion poll from our audience. And we'd be grateful if you could participate. At the end, we should have time for you to ask questions on what you've seen. So a few words about myself and the team first. For those that don't know me, I first entered the world of speech recognition when it was in its infancy, and I've spent more than half of my working life in it. Over the years, it has grown and matured, first slowly, but more recently accelerating to become such a normal part of everyday life, both for professionals and consumers. This gives us all a great opportunity now in developing solutions that solve real-world business problems for our clients. I'm joined today by some of my great colleagues, Vadim Shepanov, who is our Product Director and Vice CEO, and from our sales executive team, Pier Giorgio Vittori, who is the Global Business Development Director and Country Manager for Italy and UK, and Jörg Schleier, who is the Country Manager for DACH. But before we start on the webinar itself, a few words about our company. Spitch is both well established and staffed by a highly talented team of professionals, some of whom are renowned figures in the world of speech technology. We have an ever-increasing global presence. We are currently based in Zurich, with offices in Milan, London, Madrid, and Moscow. Spitch are able to deliver solutions in UK English, American English, German, Swiss, and uniquely Swiss-German, French, Italian, and Russian. We also have a tried and tested approach that enables us to easily implement new languages for our clients. Spitch has, as part of its mission, undertaken to provide a high degree of focus on its partners through the provision of development tools, education, co-marketing, and sales support. Next, we'll look at how we are addressing the vertical markets. We have designed our technology and high-level tools to be completely flexible so that you can easily mold your solutions to address vertical markets, their domains, and right down to the individual needs of each client. Our methods and facilities, which we apply in one use case, can easily be reused in another. We currently have 18 case studies to show in 7 different verticals, in 7 languages across 4 countries. So all that provides you with great success stories to fuel your sales conversations. These cover the broad solution areas of self-service, voice verification and identification, speech analytics, and compliance monitoring. And that is just putting it very briefly. We've built the technology so you can address all the fundamental needs of your client rapidly and help them to hit the ground running from day one. And I make no apology for yet again using my favorite saying. And so now on to our first use case of today, smart interactive voice response in the retail market. Now, for anyone that has ever telephoned a call center and had to deal with a complex menu of keypad choices, smart IVR is heaven sent. For the customer to be able to simply say in their own words why they are calling will delight both your client and their customers. Not only that, but calls can be routed by the service to the correct agent and with a minimum waiting time. The caller's intent and the transcription of the caller's voice can be presented on the agent's screen. This gives a great boost to the customer experience and makes for great efficiency gains in the management of the call center. But now we'll dig a little deeper and define the problem. The big issue, of course, is waiting time. It is simply a killer for both customer, enterprise, and call agents alike. Customers are frustrated, and so are the agents, who are overloaded. This leads to low customer experience, or CX, as well as staff retention problems and high costs for the organization. All in all, it is a serious business problem and usually much bigger than anyone realizes. The good news is that we have the answer, of course. And in the next sequence, Vadim will show you how automated answering and call steering works in retail.
I'd like to explain how the speech voice solution can help retail using two simple examples. First of all, the intent recognition voice application should be implemented at the answering point. As we've said before and heard from many retail companies, 80% of calls concern just three topics. It's where is my order, change an order, return an order. Speech has a generic voice application for retail available in all our supported languages, which can be used out from the box or with slight tuning. As for remaining 20% of calls, we can start by steering them either to common queue of or tuning the models for company-specific topics like new purchases, information requests on products, and so on. For some retailers, sorting the client's calls into important and non-important is crucial. For example, one e-commerce company sells electrical appliances to both domestic and business users from the same central phone number. All routine calls from domestic callers could be served automatically, but requests from businesses are steered to an appropriate member of sales team. We can tune the intent recognition voice application to understand the difference either through asking additional questions like, is that for business or for personal use, or straight from the conversation based on semantic interpretation of the intent. For example, when the customer asks, I need some detail on the coffee machine in our bar. After the intent is recognized, Speech Dialog Composer steers the call appropriately. The easiest to address is also the most frequent type of request, and that is, where is my order? You can see the flow for this use case on the left-hand side on the slide. We need to perform only three easy steps. First, to identify the order. Next, to retrieve information on that order's tracking from the logistics backend system. And finally, to provide the status and details back to the customer. Order identification can be done from the order number, date of purchase, delivery address, etc. The more parameters the system asks, the more accurately the order is identified. We recommend to use two parameters for order identification as a good trade-off between the accuracy of identification and customer satisfaction. Once the order identification is done, Speech Dialog Composer requests the order status, estimated title of delivery, and other details via API from answer and play the customers using TTS or pre-recorded audio or hybrid of those two. On the right-hand side, you can see the flow of another use case, product identification for changing or returning an order, which is done by robot prior to steering the call to an agent. Product identification works in a similar way to order identification. We usually need two parameters to make a high-precision identification. In the case shown on the slide, you can see auto part identification by vehicle identification number and part number. Once the product is identified, the call is steered to an agent together with the information about the product that appears on the agent's desktop as a card from product catalog or order form from CRM or standalone pop-up window. In both of those examples, we save the agent time spent on calls, either by fully servicing the call automatically or eliminating a significant part of the conversation with the agent that can easily be done by a robot. At the same time, we increase customer satisfaction because both of those calls are answered after the first ring, whatever the agent workload at the time. I hope the examples we've illustrated here clearly show the advantages of using voice technology in retail. Please use the webinar chat to ask any questions you have. I'll try to answer them all at the end. And now I'm passing the microphone to Gary.
Now that we've seen the process flows of our solution, let's go to Jörg, who will tell us about a real-world use case.
Yes, thanks, Gary. We will talk about Amag. Amag is the largest car dealer in Switzerland, and we are now focusing on their spare parts department. Their spare part department, they receive up to 1,500 calls per day from people who want to order spare parts for their cars. Many of them are professionals who are calling multiple times per day. The conversation always starts with the 17-digit vehicle identification number called VIN. This VIN number consists of 17 characters and numbers, and we have built a voice automation solution for Amag, which asks every caller for the 17-digit VIN number. And the call is only getting transferred to the agent after the VIN number is correctly recognized. And then the agent receives a pop-up on his screen with the corresponding car, and he gets the call from the customer, and they start the conversation about the spare part which the caller wants to order. This sounds like a trivial solution, but the savings are fundamental. You can make the calculation yourself. If you receive up to 1,500 calls per day, and if you save 10 to 20 seconds on every call, this is fundamental. The accuracy of the solution is way above 90% in a very noisy environment. You have to see many people are calling from an environment that there is drilling and hammering in the background, and we receive a very high accuracy in that very noisy environment by recognizing this VIN number. That's the solution up and running. And the future potential for the company Amag is also big. Just think about automating the full order process, 7x24, or the potential for other departments. That's the story currently in use by Amag. I'm giving back to Gary.
And now we come to our first audience opinion poll, in which we're going to ask you, what use case do you think is the most valuable for retail? And what we'd like to know is, do you think the most valuable use case is perhaps automation of the most frequent standard queries, like, where is my order? Or maybe it's customer, product, or order identification during the call. Perhaps you think that a voice user interface and voice search for e-commerce mobile apps is the answer. Or maybe voice-driven omni-channel chatbots for products, advice, and sales. So please take a few moments now and choose the answer that matches your opinion best. Okay, well, thanks very much for taking part in the first poll. We will, of course, send out the results with the presentation material following the webinar. Next, let's turn our attention to the second of our use cases today, the omnichannel conversational platform. The market of interest here is government. In this use case, we are processing several channels, hence the word omnichannel, including phone, website text bot, and text-based services, including social media, for example. The key point is that one solution is serving all these inputs via our ASR, NLU, and SSMs, statistical semantic models, of course. Because the conversation is processed centrally, there is a common routing and integration strategy underpinning the solution. Calls can be serviced automatically or routed according to the intent of the call, but so too can the other channels. That may result in information being relayed via text, email, or even a callback. The great thing is that no information is lost. The agent and the CRM is able to get all the salient information and in real time. Now, for government, that means fewer lost calls, less stress on the call centres, and of course, happier citizens. One of my most valued clients told me recently that most of her customers are just too busy to talk to an agent. And I guess that is a sign of how we are evolving as a society. And great news, because we can provide such an automated service. But now let's try to define the problem more clearly. If we look at the example of local government in the UK, Each council receives thousands of calls per day over routine inquiries such as, when do I have to pay my council tax? Or, what day does my refuse get collected? Now, even though these are simple to answer, it is a very expensive and time-consuming operation to service each of these calls. There are not enough call centre staff, and so calls end up going back to the central switchboard and then routed out to the departments again. From here, if the caller is lucky, they might get an answer, but if so, this is tying up the valuable time of the administration staff. Because the vast majorities of the calls, perhaps as high as 80%, are so mundane and straightforward, it means they are ideal for automation. And the omni-channel approach is best, as this will integrate perfectly with all the government's access platforms. And now that we have defined the problem area, let's go to Vadim, who will show us the technology at work.
Yes, a local government contact center is a good example of queuing system where conversational technologies may help. In this example of an automated answering system, I am going to explain why the omnichannel approach matters and how it works. The omnichannel platform allows customer communication in any channel, voice or text. The speech platform was developed as voice first, but we also support text from various endpoints, a chatbot window on a website, messengers, emails, etc. Text means rich text, of course, and you can include media in the answers. On the slide, you can see the simple automated answering IVR that provides information on garbage collection in the area. The system asks which kind of garbage a customer wants to recycle and the postcode. The system provides the address of the nearest recycling center, the opening hours for today, and several alternative centers. In the voice channel, the system will read out the addresses. In text, it is much more convenient to send the link to the location in Google Maps. You can see what this looks like on the slide. On the top left of the screen, you can see the text chat and the bottom, the last two answers in the format of map links. Speech Dialog Composer supports any media within the rich text answers, pictures, audio, links, and you can use appropriate media within the text channel also. So now that we have seen that there may be different types of answers according to channel being used, it must be said that voice and text also differ in terms of input. The challenge is that people express themselves differently in speech and text. Moreover, the structure of the voice dialogue also differs from the text. Sometimes you need to ask several clarifying questions, and sometimes everything is clear within one sentence. Merely performing a regular transcription followed by intent recognition on the resulting text from the ASR engine doesn't give enough accuracy for business needs, nor in the conversation flow natural as with a human agent. On the other hand, Speech Dialog Composer allows the use of separate models for each channel. For example, speech unique voice to intent approach works on telephone calls, while text-based statistical semantic model is used for text chat. The essential feature of the omnichannel approach is context maintenance. It means that the system keeps the context of the conversation across all channels and can continue the interrupted conversation from the same point even if the customer changes the channel or starts a new conversation, taking into account what the customer had said in the previous session, regardless of what channel was used. In our example regarding garbage collection, if the customer started a session using the text channel, was given the details of the recycle center, but then made a telephone call to the service whilst on their way, the system would not ask for the postcode or garbage type again, since that information would have been retained. Another advantage of speech omnichannel technology is the flexibility that we allow in setting the system. That could be on-premise in the cloud, or even a hybrid approach, whereby some components are running in each location. And this advantage is very important for government implementations, as we know. So that concludes this example of a very simple but quite valuable use case for local governments. And now I will hand the microphone back to Gary.
So you see that we can greatly improve the old contact processes by replacing them using an omnichannel approach. Now we will hear from Pier Giorgio about this technology and how it has greatly helped a large consortium.
Good morning to everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a use case in Italy for automated waste management. The customer in question is Formula Ambiente. It's a consortium of 50 Italian municipalities. As part of their task, they need to provide citizens with free of charge information about recycling bulky items, meaning furniture, TVs, gardening waste, and so on and so forth. Before the solution, our solution, there were human clerks taking calls during opening hours, attending citizen requests, which was, of course, a waste of time and during the morning, most of the time. So Speech implemented a self-service speech-enabled IVR can attend the calls and provide the needed information right on the spot with no needs of human intervention. The solution has been implemented initially in one city, Trieste City in Italy, as a first step into this automation process. The second step is planned now and is going to be involving other cities, up to 50 potential cities, which is the number of city municipalities that Formula Ambiente is taking care of. As a benefit of these solutions, again, this is a IVR-based speech-enabled solution. As a benefit of this solution, I see two folds. From the citizen perspective, they can call anytime, so no need to call during opening times. There is no waiting time, and they get exactly the same information they will get from the clerk. And then from speech perspective, that's a solution that once it's developed for one city can be replicated to all other cities, because at the end of the day, items to be recycled are the same, or very similar. And from the government perspective, the important is here is that they can use the clerks for more complex tasks instead of taking calls and just providing the same information every day. With that said, I just back to Gary and open to questions then. Thanks.
That was a compelling story, I think, about the extent to which voice automation can help a large organization. Now we're going to hear about another case study involving voice automation, this time from Jörg.
Yes, thanks, Gary. We are talking about the solution which has been built by our partner Adnovum here in Switzerland. Adnovum has built a voice IVR response system for a large Swiss government department. This department did an analysis on all their incoming calls, and they found out that about 50% of all incoming calls are standard questions, like what are your office opening hours? Do I need to attend in person for a specific service, or can I send someone else? I lost my documents. What do I need to do? Things like this are the standard questions. And answering these standard questions is cumbersome and time-consuming for the employees, and it's also, of course, cumbersome and time-consuming for the customer. Our partner Adnovum has now built a solution for this department which answers the standard questions fully automatically. And this new voice service is now available 7/24, whereas the normal human service was only operated from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the afternoon. So this voice service is, first of all, an additional service for the customer because they receive an answer immediately, even in peak times. And the service is also now available 7/24, and you can call at 2 o'clock in the night. And if you have a standard question, you get an answer from the automated system. This was the first solution partner Adnovum has built. And then another government department heard about that, and they called them and asked them, hey, we have a different case in our department. We are sending out approximately 1.8 million invoices in the time frame of November December. And many of these customers which receive these invoices are going to call us with questions about these invoices. So for this government department, they have a high peak of call in November and December, because a certain percentage of the people who have received invoice are calling, and then it gets totally quiet the other 8 or 10 months of the year. And they needed a solution to reduce this peak load. And after the first case, Adnovum has built a solution for these guys, which answers the standard questions on invoice automatically. On every invoice, there is a telephone number printed. If you call that telephone number, the system will ask you what is the reason for your call. And if the system recognizes it's a standard question, the system will automatically answer your question. And only if your question is not a standard question, you get automatically forwarded to the agent. And of course, this service is also running 7 by 24. Again, an additional service for the customer. And it already helped the department to break this peak load which they are getting in November timeframe. And due to the experience Adnovum gained on the first case, they have built the second case within a few weeks. So they built it super fast, as there was an urgency. It needed to get up and running by November. So within a short time frame, they have Adnovum has built 2 successful use cases in full production for government departments here in Switzerland. That's from me, and I'm handing over back to Gary.
Thanks, Jörg, for relating that great case study. And I think that would have fantastic practical applications, certainly here in the UK, and probably many of you are all thinking the same thing, for all your countries, many different departments. So next, we're going to come to our second audience opinion poll, in which we want to pick your brains yet again. And this time, we're going to ask the question, do you think the local government authorities in your country are ready to adopt voice and speech technologies? And it's an important question because, we're evangelists in this sort of game, and we want to, get people to adopt things maybe faster than they would like, and I think that's the great balancing act. So the different opinion choices we're looking for here. Are you of the opinion that, yes, they are ready, it's a good time to approach them with voice and speech solutions? Or maybe you think that possibly they're ready, but not for big projects, just for pilot projects in some areas. And then perhaps you might think that they will hardly be prepared to adopt voice and speech solutions right now. Or maybe you don't do business with the local government bodies, which is a perfectly good viewpoint, because, we know that it is very difficult sometimes to reach into these layers of government. So please sit back, kick back, have a good think about these answers and think about your individual situations, and select the answer that you think is best for you. Thanks very much for sharing your views so openly with us. And as I said earlier, we will share the statistics when we send out the presentation material. So this takes us nicely to the third subject area for today. And that's the case of smart IVR within healthcare. Now, if you're like me, you tend to think about the need for voice automation as something only relevant in the very big call center operations. But we've learned through our experience that there's a clear need for such business solutions in smaller operations, even within smaller offices within the healthcare sector, where, in situations where the admin staff are having to act as call center operators, for example. This is particularly true in situations, for example, in healthcare, when patients are calling to either make new appointments, to change existing appointments, or simply inquire about an appointment. So, for example, they might want to know the exact location, or even on a big site, for example, they want to know something about the layout of the site and where the reception is or where their clinic is. Or it might be information they want, say, to prepare for an appointment. You know, can I eat before the appointment? What clothes do I bring, etc., etc.? How long will it take? And all these things become a real problem for the admin staff, because obviously they have other things to do. So they're answering calls, very often routine calls. And when these volumes of calls peak, for example, in the mornings, lunch times, if there's any sickness of their staff, then it's very difficult to cope with the volumes because they just keep increasing. And as I said, these calls are routine, but they can't be dealt with very quickly, usually. It normally results in them looking on a booking system, retrieving information, etc. And what this does is result in very long waiting times and even lost calls. And if you're in a private business, then that's putting a dent in your revenue stream, because not only are you losing calls, but the real hard thing to grasp is that you're probably losing calls to your competitors. So you will know from what you've seen already today that we can provide a smart IVR solution via our technology areas of speech recognition with natural language understanding and natural language processing, combined with statistical semantic modeling. In this type of use case, the result of the automated call may be to update the booking system or to route automatically to an agent if it is a brand new patient and they need to be registered. It may simply be to provide information, as I said earlier, to the caller, either by voice or by text. Now we will hear from Pier Giorgio once more to tell us about a use case from one of our key healthcare customers in Italy.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. So I'm talking about today of a private healthcare provider in Italy. It's called Casa della Salute. They have about 7 ambulatory offices in the main centers of Liguria and Piedmont, 2 regions in northwest of Italy. What they do offer is over 1,000 types of medical examinations. Their mission is basically to ensure healthcare to everyone, with a specific focus to the patient, and providing the examination with very competitive prices. Speech, together with Dot-Vogel, one of our partners in Italy, jointly developed a multi-channel solution. Basically, it consists of a speech-enabled IVR, text voice bot, and a Facebook connector that allows existing customers to automatically reserve medical examinations anytime and through any channel of the preferences. The focus has been to provide basically the same customer experience regardless of the channel used. So where everything started here. So what was the main problem of Casa Salute? The main problem was they were growing a lot, expanding, opening new offices all the time, and the call agents couldn't handle all incoming calls. So about a year ago, they were losing about 20% of their calls. A missed call for a private healthcare provider, as Gary mentioned before, means potential lost customers, because when I call and I'm there and I'm waiting, and then nothing happens, or just hang up or the call drops, and then I try to call a different provider. So that was the reason. So for them, they're losing potential customers. So what the solution we did is we developed a solution based on these 3 channels. So partner reservation handled by a bot, which on the web page is in production, so can be used to reserve medical examinations. You can text it, or you can actually speak to the bot. Another channel is used is a Facebook, and that's why Facebook, because they also offer a lot of examination for the sport medicine. So it's a lot of young people that prefer using Facebook for a reservation. Other calls, they are going straight to an agent. So they call actually an IVR instead of, talking to an agent. So the first implementation is when a call and the agent is not available, the call is routed to an IVR, and the IVR will take care of it. As well as the IVR will take care of it when after the opening hour. So in the evening, for example, when there is no more agent available. So all the channels basically are available active 24/7. And the second phase of the projects will be basically that instead of having only going through the speech-enabled IVR, only the calls which are not handled by the agents, but the idea is to put actually the speech-enabled IVR in the front part. So taking all the calls and then taking care of these calls, and only when it needs an agent will route a call to an agent. As Gary mentioned before, because if it's a new patient, he has to go through an enrollment phase, and this is done usually by an agent. So when he get there, he asks, first things he will ask is, what is your first name and last name? If the first name and last name is part of the list of existing patients, they will go ahead with the following menu, which means what kind of examination you have to run, which date, preferable date, location, and so on and so forth. If it's a new customer and the name is not found in the list, the call is routed to the agent that will enroll the patient, and next time you can use the automated system. So basically what the system works, you can interact through a bot on a web page, Facebook, or through an IVR. You can make a request. So you get into this system. The user interface is exactly the same regardless of the channel used. The system will ask you, will come, and they will ask for first name, last name, and then after that recognize first name, last name, and they ask for type of examination, preferred place of service, indication date, time, and back and forth. We'll consult the CRM to make sure that there is information are updated there. And then at the end of the day, as Gary also mentioned, we'll provide information to the patient regarding the logistic, regarding what has to be prepared before going to examination, if he has to be on a specific diet or if he has to wear specific stuff. So this is done. And what I want to pinpoint at the end is that it's a multi-channel application. So it's 3 channels, the same customer experience, and that's the main purpose here. Is not only to reduce the number of calls lost, which is definitely a huge damage for the healthcare provider, but also to provide a service which is nice as for the patient itself. So he's more willing to use that service rather than going somewhere else. So this basically is their use case. I will be happy to take calls at the end, and I will go back to Gary. Thanks.
Pier Giorgio for sharing that story with us. Now to go to our 4th use case for today, the subject of back office support. Voice automation is not just for external commercial or public services, because it can provide tremendous efficiency in the internal communication flow, particularly in back office support. And for a large organization, the more exponential is the increase in cost and complexity to provide such a service, especially if you're a big organization with many sites, many departments, many facets to the business. Just like some of the earlier examples you have seen, the 80-20 rule applies again. So what we're saying is 80% of the sort of calls that the support center receives are very routine and very straightforward. These calls are, however, again, time-consuming and laborious to deal with. So the answer is that we can provide an automated IVR and multi-channel conversational platform, delivering both partial and full automation to back office requests. And these can range from simple inquiries to reporting complex IT problems. The same technologies are put to work, but in a different environment with statistical semantic models that are customized to the language of that company, you might say. So now that we've dug into the problem, let's hand over to Vadim to show us the technology at work.
So finally, last but not least, as saying goes, this use case we actually implemented at Speech for the first line support of our clients. But generally speaking, it could be implemented within any voice system to issue support tickets. So if you call Speech's first line support, you are in fact speaking to the robot. We identify the client and the caller first. the IVR request, the contract number, and the name of the person who is calling. The system checks information provided with the CRM, and if it passes identification, asks about the problem. The system recognizes the topic of the problem being described by the caller and puts the summary of the problem as well as full text transcription of the client's speech and the appropriate text directly into speech issue tracker. The text tags associated with the ticket may contain the problem area, level of urgency, and other features of the issue. We extract those tags using a statistical semantic model, or we may ask about some of them during the conversation as additional questions. For the convenience of speech engineering staff, we also attach the ticket to the audio file of the system speech. This very simple solution helps speech make efficiency gain in running this service without negatively affecting the quality of support in terms of SLAs with our clients. A similar approach may be used for support ticket systems such as IT help desk, office facilities support, voice booking service for training, internal training, or so on. The challenge of implementing this type of use cases is that all problem definitions are quite specific for the business or enterprise concerned. So in order to achieve high accuracy in identifying topics and make the correct tag association, we customize specific models to address the relevant issues. The approach here may be to train the models on the historic data stored on the issue tracker if it contains the original text of customer's request. Alternatively, we can use a manual process to assign topics and tags based on transcription and audio recordings and train the models once we collect a sufficient amount of that data. From an integration point of view, as I said, our system is integrated with Jira as we use Jira for support issue tracking. But Speech Dialog Composer supports bespoke API calls as well as any of the modern issue tracking system also support open API to raise tickets. So we can integrate our flow in Dialog Composer with any of modern issue tracking system easily. Then the idea of voice input may be used not only for issue trackers, but for other backend systems. They need a lot of manual input for its users. Another good example is voice input with CRM. In some industries, a lot of text has to be input, such as with investment banking, whereby the agent must create summary of each client conversation on the CRM in order to comply with financial regulation. In other type of business, where the users are field-based, such as with insurance surveyors, voice input enables CRM entries to be made remotely via telephone or from mobile device. This provides a great efficiency gain over having to wait to get to an office and make a report via typing. Those examples conclude the series of use cases for today. I will happily answer any of your questions at the end. So I will now hand the microphone back to Gary to conclude today's workshop.
I think this is a great example of a saying we have over here, which is eat your own dog food, which means before you go selling technology outside, you deploy it inside your organization or something like that. Now we come to our third and last opinion poll, in which we're going to ask you, what area of back office activities may be improved most by using voice and speech solutions? And the choices that you have here, would that be in the areas of human resources, finance, administration, for example, automation of communications with employees? Or is it in IT for the automation of ticket raising? Is it security, voice authentication of employees, automation of communications? Or don't you see any voice and speech solutions being applicable for back office functions? So again, please take a few moments and read through those and choose the one that you think matches your opinion best. Thanks very much for sharing your views. Now, this brings us to the final part, where we invite you to ask questions on what you've seen today. Okay, so we've lots of good questions coming in, so thanks very much for that. Now, the first question we have here is from Brian, and it's regarding retail use cases. And he says that accurate recognition of the order number is crucial. And what he wants to know, this is summarizing the question, what accuracy level is sufficient for such use cases, and can Spitch guarantee this level of accuracy in your solutions? So the answer in short, Brian, is as you saw in the use case at EMAG that Jörg related to us, there we're actually achieving a recognition rate of 94%. And this is in very difficult acoustic conditions. Now, just to give you a comparison, 94% is easily on the same level as human operators. So I think the answer, broadly speaking, is yes. That is that's the level of accuracy that we're achieving, which I think you'll agree is very, very acceptable. Now, the next question we have here, and it's from Paul. Thank you very much, Paul. Paul says that all EU governments are taking GDPR seriously today. So he wants to know, are Spitch solutions for public sector compliant with GDPR? And I'm going to ask Vadim to answer that one, if you wouldn't mind.
First of all, generally speaking, yes. Spitch solutions and Spitch as a company 100% compliant with GDPR. And let me tell a couple of words. So if we deploy our solution on premise with local government or other companies which operates private data, we only supply the software, and our software has all features required by GDPR: role access, feature to delete and erase all personal data, feature to provide the person with their info, and so on. Yeah, but in this case, we are only software supplier, and software is compliant with GDPR requirements. In case we provide our solution from the cloud, Spitch is a data processor. We never play the role of data controller, and data controller every time is our customer, either local government or other enterprise. And as data processor, Spitch does have all required documents in place, and again, our software is compliant with GDPR. So thank you very much, and yeah.
Thanks for fielding that question, Paul. And our next question is from Les, and Les wants to know, can voice also help with recruitment for human resources? For example, helping to conduct an automated interview. So again, I'd like Vadim to answer that one, if you wouldn't.
It's very interesting. So we did have a couple of communication to HR companies about whether or not we can do some solution for automated interview and helping HR process. So I would say that's our back office use case about employees to enterprise communication, but on the phase that is previous to employment. Yeah, so that's we would say about this use case. Yeah, of course we can conduct any kind of dialogues and develop on Dialogue Composer and make some questionnaires and assurance of candidates through automated running telephonic interview. The restriction here could be that this could be applied only for some massive employment like cashiers or employees in supermarkets or so on. You of course, so far we can't build the dialogues, for example, to hire high-tech programmers or software developers, because our systems can't put the question in accordance to analyze those particular skills in programming or management or sales, of course. Yeah, but for massive employment, like again some trade halls operators, McDonald's and so on. We of course can develop simple questionnaires and conduct the simple questions and check some points from your normal interview automatically. So I hope that's answered your call. Yeah, thank you.
I'd just like to add as well that a big problem in recruitment today is actually fraud, where people impersonate other people. And Vadim alluded to, the high volume type jobs for which most interviews are conducted via telephone. So we are working with at least one partner who wants to deploy voice biometrics as a method of identifying potential employees for during interview processes. So there's my addition. So sadly, that brings us very close to the end of this session. So thanks everybody for joining. Thanks to those who fielded questions. And all that remains is for me to thank you on behalf of everyone at Spitch for attending. And I hope to see you again at some point in the future. But before I go, can I just say, please visit our new landing page where you can register to get more information, try out our development tools, or watch the recordings of all the webinars. And by the way, if you're already registered, then please remember to visit it regularly, as we are introducing new information and sales collateral on a regular basis. And finally, if you've seen something today that sparked your interest and you'd like to demonstrate it to your clients, then please do not hesitate to contact your local Spitch team, and they will be more than happy to help you set up that presentation, providing information, providing people on the ground with you. So thank you very much again. Goodbye and see you soon.